Dorado County, this is our October the 21st meeting, and it's a special public meeting with the El Dorado Hills Fire Board Candidates Forum. Zoom is available. Stu, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you, Stu. Just briefly, I've got a few president's comments. Effective October the 7th, the El Dorado County election ballots were mailed. Important national, state, and local issues and candidates are on the election ballots. Everyone that is eligible to vote should vote. Let's set a county record for return ballots. Let's vote. El Dorado County 2025 membership forms are now available. You can make a difference individually and collectively. And now I'm going to go to item 4 and turn it over to Gina.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Gina Posey, and I will be your moderator for this forum. Thank you to the candidates for being here today and for all of you here today. Those of you on Zoom, this will work like the other forums that we had in recent weeks. The one difference, since we have 4 candidates here today, they will have 2 minutes to give their opening statement as well as answer questions, followed by a closing statement. The questions were gathered from members as well as the public. I've done my best to consolidate them into the most important questions. I hope you will agree that there's going to be a lot of good content in your answers. Hank, our professional timekeeper, will let you know when there's 30 seconds left for your questions, so you can wind down your answer. Any questions from anyone? Okay, then we're gonna go ahead and get started. You can turn over your sheets. I did give all the candidates the questions. This is to avoid being asked to repeat the question for every candidate in the interest of time. Okay, so let's
And I
begin.
will hold up the sign when it's 30 seconds left to go, so.
Okay, so let's begin with opening statements. We did have a random drawing and Kevin won the drawing, so Kevin will go first. And then we'll simply go down the row for their opening statements. So Kevin?
All right, so my name is Kevin Dottrell. Hired here in July 1st. Been a Bay Area firefighter for the last 30 years. And raised my kids here, all 3 of them, in El Dorado Hills. Been here for a little over 2 decades. And now's my time to give back to the community. You know, I've benefited quite a bit from living in El Dorado Hills. I've watched it grow. I've watched it change. And when I found out there was no positions available on the board, I felt that now I have the time, the knowledge, and the experience to make educated decisions that best reflect our community and how we spend our tax dollars. So that's why I'm running for this position, and I'm not a politician. I've got nothing to gain. I'm just giving my time and giving it back because I've taken so much over the last 20 years. So thank you.
Thank you. Bobby?
Yes. Good morning, I'm Bobby Bennett. I currently serve on the board of directors. I've been on the fire board for the last 5 years, which was originally appointed by the fire department board of directors. The reason that I'm choosing to go ahead and run again is because I feel that I still bring a value to the board. In addition, for me, it's community service. It's my way of giving back to the community in which I live. And that's very important to me. In terms of my background, my professional background is human resources. I worked for 2 cities in accounting and HR. And during that time frame, it's allowed me to work with the fire departments for over 20 years. So I'm very familiar with the fire service and how it operates. In addition, once I retired from full-time work, I became an HR consultant. So I consult with public agencies throughout the state of California and Arizona. And many of them were fire departments that I consulted with. So I fully retired last year. Thank you very much. And so, it's again, my pleasure to serve on this board. In terms of the values that I can bring to this board, because I've worked for public agencies, I fully understand public finance, how that works. And so since that's one of our key things on our board, that's a big service that I can bring a lot of knowledge. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Bobby. John?
Yeah, I'm John Heidel. I previously served on the El Dorado Hills County Water District Fire District for 33 years. As part of my community service, I've served 7 and almost 8 years on the Board of Supervisors. Born and raised in the Central Valley in a farming community, went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, graduated degree in mechanical engineering, went to work for Aerojet, worked as a rocket scientist for 31 years there, moved over to Northrop Grumman, worked 8 years there. And in 1983, I think it was, I ran for the board of the El Dorado Fire Department, was elected for many, many terms. So I understand the territory. I understand what's going on with the department. And for me, it's community service. It's giving back some of the things that I think I can contribute to, add value to. During my career in Aerojet, I did a lot of work with respect to process improvements, root cause analysis, a lot of different things that allow you to look at financial aspects of the corporation, operational aspects, very, very diversified in terms of my experience base. So for me, it's returning to a known quantity and trying to basically give again in the area where it's needed. And we'll get into the reasons why here shortly. But that's basically my scenario, and look forward to being able to serve again.
John? Dan?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Danelli. I'm currently a chief deputy with the Sacramento Sheriff's Office. I've been there over 30 years now, getting ready to join the retirement world. Extensive experience in running large-scale organizations, operations, as far as operationally and financially. My family moved us to the United States in 1978 from Padma, Italy. So I'm a legal immigrant to this great country. The reason I'm running is currently I'm the president of 2 homeowners associations, one Winter Haven, my community, and then the larger scale one, Lake Forest Owners Association. When I moved my family to El Dorado Hills in 2012, I saw the great value that the area brought and the benefits that it provided me and my family. So I felt the need to kind of give back, saying I'll echo a lot of these sentiments that I want to serve the community. And give back to the community that's given so much to my family. I'm ready to do this. Like I said, I'm retiring soon, so I'll have plenty of time to do it. And just look forward to the opportunity to serve on a grander scale.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, since Kevin started the opening statement, Bobby, you'll be first for the first question. First question. What are the El Dorado Hill Fire Board's 2 most serious challenges and how would you address them?
I think that the one that is key for us in El Dorado Hills is the growth. There's, as many of you know, there's a lot of, proposed growth within El Dorado Hills. So that creates a challenge for the fire department, not only in terms of service, but how do we provide those services? How do we keep up with that growth? Not only in terms of population, but in terms of structures. So that's a key component that we have. The other, of course, is always the financial, even though we are, a financially sound organization and have been for many, many years. We have to make sure we maintain that. We have to make sure that the decisions that we make going forward are very sustainable for the future. At the same time, recognizing their growth. So how do we balance those 2 positions? So those to me are the 2 primary concerns that we have for El Dorado Hills.
Thank you. John?
So for me, it's returning to a community-based, community-oriented organization. As many of us have witnessed, when an organization grows and grows with the growth that happens, they tend to get more detached from the local community aspect of things. And so I think one of the things we need to do is do more outreach and be more community oriented. The fire department is well respected in El Dorado Hills, no doubt about it. But what I'm hearing from a lot of the fire personnel is we've kind of lost that community touch. And along with that is business friendliness. We need to make sure that we're always willing to work with new businesses, work with existing businesses, and find some middle ground in terms of getting permits approved and various things happening there. But ultimately, the second thing I think is finance, because we have gotten to a point since I left the board where the reserve funds have gone down substantially. There's been some major investments, and I think we all recognize that any kind of a vehicle today, whether it's a ladder truck or just an engine, is extremely expensive compared to what it was even 10 years ago. So it takes a lot of funds to keep new equipment, new engines on the road and make them very serviceable. So that's a big part of it. So balancing the budget is something I have a lot of experience on, having been on the board before. I know what we did. Negotiations gets into that in terms of how you deal with the union staff and make sure that they have a fair and equitable set of salaries and benefits, but also making sure that you have enough reserve set aside to deal with those circumstances that could happen unexpectedly. We originally started with an approach that we would have at least a 1-year operating reserve, recognizing that when the funding comes in from primarily property taxes for the board of supervisors, from the board of supervisors collected through the treasurer's office and then distributed to special districts, that was something that could be changed fairly dramatically at the state level with legislation. Obviously, Prop 13 has protected us from a lot of that, but there's continued efforts there. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Dan?
Yeah, I agree. As far as the finances are concerned, exponentially, we see an increase in the revenue according to the homework I've done. However, the expenditures seem to be kind of on the uptick, and need to be looked at and make sure that we're spending the money on the right things. We can't outpace ourselves. I very much respect and love a vision towards the future, but if that vision outpaces your budget, it's not sustainable. The other issue that I know we're gonna have to take a deep dive into or continue to take a deep dive into is the annexation with Cameron Park. Bottom line, my philosophy on that is I don't want the residents of El Dorado Hills to have to fund something that they will not see a personal return on themselves. So we're gonna have to see, you know, what kind of plan Cameron Park has in place. I know there's very little room for growth up there. So as far as maybe cutting some things that they're doing or somehow increasing revenue somewhere to help fund that. So that will be one of my priorities as well.
Thank you. Kevin?
So I'm on the same page with John and Dan in regards to this question. Like I said, I've been in the fire service a long time. And we faced the same challenges in the department I was in prior. But it's having foresight, you know, you have X amount of tax dollars coming in, you have X amount of expenditures. You've got to budget appropriately, you have to forecast, you have to know that a fire engine has so many life expectant years in it. Right, a fire station needs to be remodeled every so many decades, right? There's things you budget for. And El Dorado Hills, there's a big tax base there, right? We generate a lot of money. Not only for the community, but also for the county. And that's a good thing. So we just need to maybe do some restructuring, take a look at some things that are going on. Why are our expenses exceeding our income? Seems a little crazy to me. But this is just me from a citizen looking in. I'm not part of a board. I'm trying to become part of the board. So I could help make some of these educated decisions, but you know, just the layman on the outside looking in is like, what's going on? Why are we not equal, you know, because it should be cost neutral. Everything should be cost neutral. You know, it's not a for-profit organization, fire department, right? We operate on tax dollars and we provide the best service we can based on the amount of money that is provided to us in regards to equipment, et cetera. So.
Great, thank you. Okay, John, you're next.
Yes.
You'll be first. Currently, El Dorado Hills is in discussions with the Cameron Park CSD to explore annexation of the Cameron Park Fire Department. How should the annexation analysis be conducted to ensure it is open and transparent for all parties concerned? If the recommendations include El Dorado Hills residents subsidizing or closing a Cameron Park Fire Station, how would you vote?
Okay, with respect to the first part of it, the analysis, I think, needs to be completed, similar to the analysis that was done with the annexation of Latrobe, similar to the analysis that was done with the potential annexation of Rescue, which means the financial aspects of it are very, very important, but the operational aspects are important as well. El Dorado Hills currently has 3-person engine companies. Cameron Park has 2 by contract with the CAL FIRE organization. So what we experienced with the annexation of Latrobe is when you move to a 2-person to a 3-person type of operation, things substantially change. Obviously, facilities have to be big enough. You have to have enough equipment available in that station to be able to work with that. So there's changes that have to be dealt with both operationally. But my thought is a task force that would look at specific aspects of that annexation. For instance, is this a subsidized proposal or not, would be helpful. So that was one of the things that I would promote, is an independent view from the standpoint of people could recommend to the boards, and this is where we see the balance in this overall operation. Is it subsidized or not? And the second part of the question is, if the recommendations come in to subsidize or close, I always look at the global aspect of this. Is it better for the overall community? Is there a better good that's served by this? And in the case of Latrobe and the annexation, that was the answer. There was a better good, but it wasn't a good financial good. There's been a lot of additional funds required to operate the station in Latrobe, and that needs to be revisited as well, in my opinion, with the passage of time, knowing what the call levels are. But I would say I would vote for what I believe is in the greatest good and the greatest interest for the fire service overall. If there's a minor subsidy, I'm okay with that personally. I wouldn't say it has to perfectly balance out, but there can't be excessive either. And so certain bond measures, or not a bond measure, but there could be an incremental assessment put against the district that would balance things out. It's another possible proposal to make sure that there isn't subsidies.
And what about closing the fire station?
That gets into a lot of discussion, but I would be willing to close a fire station if we could relocate a fire station central to Cameron Park and not have 2 stations. So part of the scenario I see is an analysis to say, what would it take to repurpose the 2 existing fire stations and move to 1 fire station on a new facility with new equipment, et cetera, that would serve the better good.
Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, I apologize. I got into this on my first question, but I saw the report, the 3rd-party report on the annexation proposals. I can't say that I agree, and it's accessible online. I can't say that I agree with everything that was proposed or suggested in that report. So I agree, we need to take a little deeper dive into the issue to see, where the funding will come from. If it did include El Dorado Hills residents subsidizing, then I agree with John that we have to have a balance between the service that it provides overall globally and the amount of money that we're going to spend operating it. As far as closing a fire station, I also have to agree with John that I think everybody needs to have access to fire service. So if that area is no longer served by the fire services, then we need to think about maybe moving the existing station to a better location that is more centralized to the residents.
Thank you. Kevin?
Well, I'm not gonna beat this to death because I agree with everything they've said. Bottom line is, people need fire protection. So who provides it? If El Dorado Hills can provide a better service, which they can than CAL FIRE, straight up, then we should do that. Because Cameron Park is paying CAL FIRE X amount of dollars, right? They're paying them so much money to provide service. And that money can be then funded towards El Dorado Hills Fire to offset the expense. Is it going to be equal? Probably not. But the El Dorado Hills citizens that live on the border of that Cameron Park station are now going to get a better level of service than they would have prior, right? There's a strategic plan when you put stations in play, 3-minute response times, right? So you gotta make those. Where the station lies is not really relevant in regards to, well, it is in regards to the 3 minutes, right? So if you have to move it or reallocate it, that's fine, as long as there's a 3-minute response window. You know, because the citizens deserve that. You know, this is the modern times here. The fire service with El Dorado Hills needs to be able to provide the level of care that the community deserves and demands. And they're doing that now. So if you're asking me, would El Dorado Hills do a better job? Heck yeah. Should we take it? If it's everything has to be cost effective, right? Can we afford to do it? We don't need to put a big burden on the taxpayers, but everything can be figured out, right?
Thank you. Bobby?
Yes. Currently, the fire department has a committee that's, sitting down with Cameron Park. In fact, Tim White is one of the committee members that serves in that conversation. I have attended one meeting as a substitute. And so the discussions overall are still in its very beginning phases. And, the comments of operations, has been touched on. The finance hasn't been gotten to yet, and that's a key factor. So these conversations are still very, very much in its early stages of understanding the full impact of absorbing that department. I think that there's different ways of approaching it. There's concerns about the citizens of Cameron Park being represented and also getting timely service. So even if we, as the El Dorado Hills Fire Department, didn't annex in Cameron Park, we would still be providing services to them. That's what it comes down to, because we have mutual aid. So whether we formally annex or not, we're still providing services over there. In terms of the finances, I just don't know where that's going to fall yet. It's preliminary. And I think that in terms of closing stations, if in fact we do absorb them and we have to look at that, there's ways of approaching that. You can do rolling blackouts, where one station is closed 1 week and 2 weeks later, the other one's closed, so you're not manning all the stations in Cameron Park. It's called a rolling blackout. So there's different ways of looking at it, and those are the things that will be discussed down the road here as we begin to understand the finances better. So it's premature.
Thank you, Bobby. Okay, Dan, you're up next. El Dorado Hills residents are complaining that the process is confusing and takes too long to get their building plans approved and inspections completed by El Dorado Hills Fire. What policies and measurements would you implement to address these issues?
I have spoken with many residents who kind of echo this frustration as far as how long it takes to get approvals and how long it takes specifically those that are building homes. I share a story of a friend of mine who was building a home in Serrano, and his timeline originally was given about 8 months, which seemed unreasonable to me, but it ended up taking almost 2 years because when it came to the approvals from the fire board, he hit a giant wall. So I want to take a look at, the El Dorado Hills Fire Department brought the fire marshal over to kind of address this issue. And it seems to have been, gotten a little better. However, I want to see, exactly what they do, see what their schedule, just get down to the minutia. In addition, I think, there's an issue with the prevention aspect of it going into businesses, because I hear a lot of frustration there as well, as far as businesses having to pay large either fines or getting up to the code, which I understand from my understanding it's changed from a county code to state code, I believe. So I want to see what can be done there, what kind of, not necessarily leniency, but what kind of discretion the fire department has in going in and addressing these businesses. As far as policies, I would want to see kind of a timeline, an understanding of the timelines that it takes to get these approvals completed. In addition, as far as what measurements we would implement, maybe a quarterly report to the board as far as the number of approvals that are pending, how long, an average length of time that it takes to complete them, and just share that information with the board and thereby share it with the public as well.
Thank you. Kevin?
So I can echo Dan on that as well. I will add though that, you know, we're public servants. And I started going to work because that's what I've done for most of my life. But the fire department, the public servants, we need to provide a service to the public. If we're creating roadblocks and hurdles and heartaches for the business community, for the citizens, then we're doing something wrong. That's not right. So if that is the case, which it seems to be, because as I've gotten into this arena, I thought it was gonna be, yeah, I'm available, you want me, I'll do this job, I'll help out, I'll do the best I can, but I'm finding out that there's a lot of upset people in this community in regards to the business. And dealing with Colorado's fire department, which is absolutely absurd because it shouldn't be that way. Like, this is a great organization that has built trust and relationships over decades. Now, all of a sudden, what is going on? We need to take a look at this and figure out what the problem is and fix it.
Thank you. Bobby?
Yes, thank you. I do agree that, you know, we have the challenges now with, the amount of time it does take to get permits for building or remodels that go on. The permit process has been a challenge for a number of years because there was no fire marshal. We had a temporary fire marshal. We brought in a fire marshal and we brought in staff. So it has truly been a learning process, I think, for the department of doing this. And currently, as of last week, there was, my memory was 118 permits submitted to just in the month of September. And so it ebbs and flows. There's a number. It's not like the department gets 4 or 5. We get in the hundreds every single month. For the low is like 75 for permits. So, you know, it does take a while. I'm not saying it's good, not in the least bit. It was taking at least 90 days because we get monthly reports on how long it's taking for permits. It was at 90, and as of the last 2 months, it's now down to 75 days. Is that great? No. Is it better? Yes. So I think they're making progress. They're trying to take steps. So they, you know, not only is the staff looking at how to address this, we as the board are very aware and ask questions constantly on this. And the way that our, you know, when you're saying about what kind of policies would we do, that kind of thing, we hold the chief accountable because he's accountable for all of his staff. So our employee is the fire chief. It's not the other employees. So we hold the fire chief accountable for that. And it is part of what we expect of him is to get that number within a reasonable term.
Thank you. John?
So it's not only residential permits that have been slowed tremendously, it's business permits. And I've gotten several calls and emails for assistance to look at what's going on with a given business application. And the unfortunate part of it is that we've had business prospects that have left El Dorado Hills and gone to other counties, particularly down in Folsom or Rancho Cordova, because we have these long delay times because we have a set of regulation. And the way I look at it, it's risk involved, right? You have to look at what is the risk of any given event happening. We know that there's always regulation changes, but I think you have to be reasonable about it and look at on a given application, what is the risk of something happening? And if the risk is relatively low, then let's get started with the process and recognize there's trigger points as time goes on, essentially a conditional use permit. that would require them to come back in and make improvements incrementally, because any new business starting up, we all know is a capital short from the standpoint of resources to invest. So I think we need to become more business friendly, more friendly with respect to what the public is looking for. The other aspect is we saw the same trend in El Dorado County with business applications permitting. And there is a very cyclical part of it. There's a building season, if you will, and then there's a season with not so much. And what we decided to do is to basically look for the resources we could get outside by contract. So when those peak demands happen, we have some outside resources can help that review process and planning and then getting the permits out. And I think the fire department needs to look at the same kind of thing. Everybody has the same building peaks, but how do you go about getting additional resources available? And maybe it's cross-training some staff so that during that seasonal period when permits get very, very heavy, that you have people that can come in and do kind of the legwork, but maybe not make the last decision, right? So it has to be a team aspect of how you address that particular peaking of demand and the resources you can provide.
Thank you. Okay, Kevin, you're up. What steps should the El Dorado Hills Fire District take to fund the increasing unfunded retirement pension obligations and post-retirement benefits?
All right, so I'm a recipient of PERS, right? It's my public retirement. I paid into it for 30 years. The city paid into it as well. We negotiated so that it was fiscally responsible. What could the city afford? And what could the employee afford? You come to a neutral area, and then you contribute that to CalPERS. So I don't know what the current contribution is of the employee with El Dorado Hills Fire, nor do I know what the contribution is of the department. But all that stuff is negotiated, and if it's not right, then we need to take a look at that and come to a neutral playing ground so that everybody, so it works for everyone. Right? Did I answer the question?
You have to decide if you've answered the
Oh,
question.
Like, I'm here for you. Like, I'm here to I got nothing to gain by being here. I want to do the right thing. And I'm passionate about the fire department. I'm passionate about El Dorado Hills. And I give a shit.
Okay,
I care. So that's why I'm adamant, that's why I'm passionate, and forgive me if I overstep or if I say something that offends anybody, but this is a big deal to me.
thank you. Abby?
Yes. I think all of us at this front table are PERS funded, because we've all worked for public agencies. So actually the El Dorado Hills Fire Department pension is well funded. We are not underfunded. Are we 100% funded? No. But we are well funded. In addition, we do have restricted funds that, we put money aside each fiscal year for our pension funding, and currently in the fund, and I'm giving you the round figures, we have in there $5 million. So it's not that we are underfunded, we are well funded compared to many public agencies. So again, do we need to maintain that and keep up with it? Absolutely. And we need to be aware, which, falls into that whole budget concept, is the costs are always going to go up because PERS always raises their rates. They always raise their rates. So again, we need to be proactive in how do we maintain that funding, be very diligent in putting our money aside into the reserve fund to keep ourselves well funded on that.
Thank you. John?
Being very analytical, what I like to see is trend analysis. So where have we been at the fire department for many years on the CalPERS issue? I know in the past, there's been periods of time that when you make an additional pay down, you see a great benefit out of it compared to what economic conditions are, interest rates, et cetera. But I think a histogram that goes back at least 20 years that would look at what has been the increasing cost of CalPERS, what has been the department's response, where have we made those incremental increasing payments, and where do we look at trend wise? Where's it going in the future? Because we all know that with high inflationary numbers, everything tends to go up. And yet the rate of return on the CalPERS investments isn't what you might think it would be, right? And that's an investment strategy and a risk involved with all those things. But to me, understanding the history and where you are recently in the trend analysis will determine whether you do have a problem or not. Do you need to increase the reserves associated with the CalPERS types of payments to make sure you stay at that same level of payment? You don't want 100%, but you'd like to be 80%-ish type of paid in, because again, that's going to be one of the leading special districts in the whole area if you're at that level. So there's a balance in how you do that, but I think the history of how we got to where we are today is very important to understand, because it predicts where you're going to go in the future.
Thank you. Dan?
I don't know what more to say than to echo a lot of what's been said already, and I appreciate Ms. Bennett bringing in the knowledge, because she's been there and she's seen it. The only other things I guess I would add is, take a look at if we need to increase contributions. I know, with me personally, I had to increase my contribution substantially a few years ago. When you're young and you come onto a public safety agency, all you want to do is go out there and take care of business and help people. You're not thinking about retirement. Trust me, 6 months away from retirement right now.
It's important.
That's the first thing on my mind. So, when the question was posed to me, what would you think about reducing funding for pension? That made my heart drop, because I wouldn't want to do that to any of our men and women out there. So I would just do everything it takes to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Thank you. Okay, Bobby, you're up.
Yes, ma'am.
Unless overturned on appeal, the Austin versus El Dorado County, El Dorado Hills Community Services District, and El Dorado Hills Fire District court case requires the refund of $23.5 million in fees. The judgment against El Dorado Fire would be $4 million. Would you favor settling the case? And how would the board pay the judgment? And what policies would you implement to avoid another Austin-like case occurring?
It doesn't come down to am I in favor of paying the settlement? We will be required by law to pay. So that doesn't matter what my opinion is on that. So allow me, I wasn't on the board when this case originally came forward. I've learned about it since I've been on the board for the last 5 years. Is that the history behind it is that the fire department, with the development funds that we use, we are required each year to file a report with the county. Our fire department every year has been diligent about filing that report. The county is the one who is responsible for reporting out to the community the overall use of those funds. The county failed to give that report to the community. It was not a failure on the fire department side. We filed our report with the county. So in terms of paying it, we do have the funds. Don't want to pay it, but we will if we have to. We do have different reserve funds, and one of our reserve funds is considered unrestricted, unassigned. So it means it's just a general operational fund, reserve fund as needed. Round figures, I'm not going to give you the exact number, but round figures in that unrestricted, unassigned fund is $18.4 million. And so we do have the money in which to pay for this settlement. And what the department has done since this has occurred, and I'll be honest, some of these steps started before I was on board. But there was training that went on with all of the staff. There was a revisiting of some of the policies. So they've taken the steps to the best of their ability, ensure this doesn't occur again. And me being from the HR background, I really pay attention to this kind of stuff. So I know that they're taking steps to try to make sure this doesn't occur again.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, as I recall, you have to submit an annual report, but there's a 5-year nexus study requirement, which goes into more detail of looking at what are the required fees associated with development, et cetera. And I was on the board when we submitted our nexus study to the county, and everything was in great condition. Our our council, our special counsel, had basically advised us we're in good stead. The county fell short of delivering what they needed to. It was a public hearing. And at the time, there was a CAO, county administrator, basically who was a retired annuitant, working from home, who had all these responsibilities set upon them, and this didn't happen. So not only did the El Dorado Hills Fire Department, the county, but also the El Dorado Hills Community Services District got somewhat compromised in the whole thing in terms of the court case. It's not a settlement, in my interpretation, it's a reimbursement of basically development fees that were paid. They have to be paid back. The interest rate is yet to be determined. So the judge will determine what those repayments have to be, what the rebates have to be. And then the county, through its means and all the special districts, will have to distribute those funds out of their reserves or wherever to the individuals that were involved with. The interesting thing to me is it's not the person who made payment on the fee that gets the money back. It's the person who owns the property. So that
Right.
rebate, if you will, reimbursement goes with property ownership. So it's unfair in a lot of cases, but that's the way it works out. I think in the future, what we really need to do is make sure that we get all the i's dotted and t's crossed for everything that happens at county operation, and we don't fall in another hole. I don't think it will ever happen again. It was a time where the county just didn't have the right leadership in the organization to make things happen the way they should have.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
I was today years old when I learned about Austin versus El Dorado County, so,
Been out for a while.
That makes me feel old.
meaning I just found out about it at this table. I would say we do what we have to do, proper communication, like Supervisor said, cross our T's, dot our I's to make sure it doesn't happen again. It's good to hear, again, with Ms. Bennett's, experience that we have the funds to cover it when we do need to pay it. So just make sure it doesn't happen again.
Thank you.
Agreed. I mean, they've pretty much covered everything. And we did everything right. They did everything right. You know, it fell short on people in the county, so we continue to do our best job and diligent. And hopefully this will never happen again.
Thank you.
That's the goal.
Right?
That's the goal. Okay, John, your question.
Yes.
Have you received campaign contributions, either financial or in-kind contributions from any political action committee? If so, describe which ones, dollars or in-kind donations received, use of these monies, and how you will ensure that your decisions on the fire board would not be influenced from these monies received.
So yes, the El Dorado Hills PAC, Political Action Committee, did interview a number of us, and then they decided to support 3 candidates on the ballot. And so the costs associated with signage, the mailers that they've done, a social media type of commitment or presence, that's all been funded by the PAC. I've received 0 funds directly into my campaign. I paid for my own ballot candidate statement. So everything that, from my perspective, is I have paid my portion of what I believe is necessary. And political action committees, as we know, can pretty much do whatever they want to do in this state. So they have funded the rest of the campaign, and I've done very little beyond that. So that's the reality of where we are.
Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, from what I understand, there was 14 of us that were interviewed that showed interest to social media, solicitations to take part in this campaign. And of the 14, it was whittled down to Mr. Gotro, Mr. Idel, myself. And so they agreed to assist us. The local firefighters 3604 agreed to assist us by way of signage and the mailers. I have taken $0 from anybody. People want to donate to my cause, but I tell them that's not, this isn't that type of campaign. And as far as influencing decisions, that was agreed upon from the get-go that, yes, you guys can kind of back our campaign. However, that doesn't mean if we're successful in getting on the board, that's going to sway our decisions towards the union or away from it. So there's a very big understanding there. Yeah, it's just a signs that keep getting moved or stolen, I've noticed.
Yeah,
Um,
vanishing.
yeah, so.
Vanishing sign.
Just signs in the mailers, and I did find out, because this is my first time running for a public office, that, to get your candidate statement on the ballot, so I hope you guys open those books and actually read them, because those things are not cheap, I found out, right, so. That's it.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, so, they said, you know, we've been endorsed by, the local PAC. I've received 0 funds outside of what they contribute to boost our popularity amongst the community and voice why they feel that we would be the best candidates. We also had the, great opportunity to meet with the Chamber of Commerce and, under a group similar to you ladies and gentlemen, and they interviewed us for quite a bit. And, they determined after talking with us that, you know, we were the ones that they wanted to endorse. So it was a really good conversation with them, but I've received no money, nothing other than, just it was saying, yes, you're somebody, meaning me, that we would like to, see in that position because of your education, your experience, your drive, and your commitment to the community and wanting to be fiscally responsible. So, yeah, that's really all I got.
You said the chamber, which chamber?
A Chamber of Commerce,
Which one?
El Dorado Hills.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
We have a
Yeah,
couple of them in our
so-
line.
El Dorado Hills Chamber of Commerce interviewed.
Okay,
Did
thank
you
you.
interview everybody?
The chamber?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
As
okay.
far as I know.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
Thank you.
yes. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Bobby?
Yeah, I've chosen to take no money from anyone. And, the, El Dorado County Realtors Association chose an endorsement, but no money associated with it. So
Thank
I've
you.
taken no money from anyone.
Appreciate that. Dan? You're up. Assembly Bill AB 38 requires home sellers in very high or high severity zones to get a fire inspection. Both County Fire and CAL FIRE have chosen to not charge residents for these defensible space inspections. In contrast, El Dorado Hills Fire has chosen to charge a $500 inspection fee. What policy or ordinance allows El Dorado Hill Fire to charge these fees, and how will the fees that are collected be used?
I am all for not charging when it's not necessary, so I want to take a look at that. How is it that County Fire and CAL FIRE can get away with not charging it and we have to charge it? I think in this economy, when people are already struggling as it is, and if you have PG&E, you can understand, everything costs more and more money. So is this necessary? Do we have any discretion? Do we need to be charging people this money? And if not, let's not do it. I mean, tax revenue increases every year, so, is it necessary? So my plan is to take a look at that, and if we don't have to charge it, let's not charge it. We already have people, as described earlier, that are not the happiest with the fire department because of fines, fees, et cetera, that they're already paying. And as far as, how will the fees collected be used? I'm not sure where that lines up in the budget. It would be a matter of taking a look at the budget and seeing exactly where that money is being collected into.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, I'm always agreeing, but, we shouldn't be charging fees for doing our job. Like, the firefighters, can easily go out and do an inspection as they should be. The way that Dorado Hills Fire is currently, doing inspections, they've kind of changed things what they used to do in the past. And I don't know if it's the best way. It is a way to do things. I think using the men and women of the fire service to go out and do inspections, no cost. And give the business owner or the homeowner feedback or educated information on how to better protect their property or business is our job. So we shouldn't be charging extra for it. And as far as the money that is currently being collected, well, we shouldn't be collecting any money. And hopefully they're doing the right thing with it, but it should stop.
So in me speaking with the El Dorado Hills Fire Department, Fire Marshal, this figure is incorrect. This is a new ordinance, as you know, or ordinance, I believe, yes. That was passed by the county in August, I believe it was, that this is now a requirement. So this is a brand new certification that's required. So this costing has not been posted on many of the fire department's websites yet because it just passed in August. Our fire department, in speaking to the fire marshal, I'm sorry, I can't remember if she's right now, she told me $230 or $240 for this inspection, if it is required for a real estate sale. And that includes the inspection and the certification, because you have to have a certification that goes with the real estate package. And you can have this done 6 months in advance of the sale of a property. So the costing, the reason it's the $230 or $240 is the actual cost for personnel to do that, to do the inspection, to fill out the forms. So it's the time reimbursement is what it comes down to. At this point, our fire marshal is under the understanding that CAL FIRE and county CAL FIRE, because they are also charging, and it's going to be anywhere between $200 to $230 for them to do the inspection. So again, I don't believe this information here is completely accurate, because the fee that people are seeing on our website is related to a different type of inspection, not one related to real estate sales. And may I add, if someone, we already have a policy in place. If someone feels that they don't have, it's an economic hardship to pay a fee or a fine, they may come to the board for consideration, and then the board makes a final decision if we are willing to waive the fee or uphold the fee. So it's not an absolute.
John?
Yeah, so as part of a fire safety effort, Assembly Bill AB 38 was passed, which really provides the overall requirement. And then the county has essentially a defensible space ordinance that looks at what does it take to be defensible, including the zero zone, which is within the first 5 feet of the home. That's something the state hasn't approved yet, but is likely to in the future, and that's going to affect all of us. But the inspections, I believe, are necessary to look at what is the existing condition, because ultimately, if you're going to try to obtain fire insurance from somebody other than the FAIR program, that you're going to need to have a very good defensible space. You're gonna need to go 100 feet out. You need to basically limb up everything out to between the 30-foot zone and the 100-foot zone, but you need to do that defensible space. From the standpoint of costs and fees, the thing I've always looked at is the cost of service. What is the cost of service in terms of the average time for a given employee to go through and look at what is the requirements of the permit, go through a checklist, make notations on it, whatever, prepare the certificate. So I believe it's always fair to charge a cost of service documented fee analysis. The $500 seems excessive to me, and what Bobby explained, basically that may not be the case, or maybe there's a maximum of $500 or something. I'm not familiar with AB 38 to know that, but within those constraints, the department then can decide we're not going to charge a fee or we are going to charge a fee, and you can decide whatever level that is you think is fair. But when you have boots on the ground going out and providing services, there's a question of if it's going to be more than maybe a half an hour worth of effort, you probably should be charging some time for it. Anything less than half an hour typically, it's just within the service duty, you do what you have to do. So I have not looked at the data to understand how long it really takes El Dorado Hills Fire, and I would want to do a comparative analysis. What does it take CAL FIRE in terms of timing to do their inspections, and likewise, what is county fire? It's time requirements, because I believe we'll probably find that El Dorado Hills has a more extensive inspection process.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Kevin.
Yes.
Last year, Cameron Park Fire decided not to extend its contract with the El Dorado County Emergency Service Authority Ambulance JPA because reimbursements were not covering its costs. El Dorado Hills Fire then won the RFP to take over ambulance service. Are El Dorado Hills costs being 100% reimbursed? And if not, how much is it costing the residents to subsidize the ambulance?
That's a great question. I do not know. Right, like, I don't know what we charge. I don't know if it's cost neutral. I know we provide the service. I know that it's a necessary service, but I don't know the financial, answers to that question, but I'm sure somebody on this board does.
Okay, thank you.
Currently, it is, pretty much a cost neutral process, having brought over, Cameron Park ambulance service. Because of the way the fees have been structured to pay for that, that it is. And we did hire, part of the way in which we kept the cost where it wasn't outrageous for us, where we were going in the hole for providing the service, is that we created, we decided to hire new types of employees, a new classification, and that was paramedics only. Because now, our other staff, how we have always been staffing is they're firefighter paramedics, so it's a dual role. So it's now what we call a single role of just a paramedic to staff the ambulance. So that reduces our cost. It's not as high of wages as it is for a firefighter paramedic. So that's how we were able to bring the cost into that neutral zone.
John?
Yeah, the ambulance JPA is an interesting study because I think the one thing that you'll find is Medi-Cal reimbursements end up being like 70% the cost. And as the number of Medi-Cal recipients increases and that service extends, it's always been a deficit type of situation. So it's extremely difficult to keep up with the neutral costs, right? You get reimbursed what it is. So for the most part, there's some subsidies that go into that. And as you look into the future, I don't see that changing. If anything, the state will probably end up with more of those Medi-Cal type of patients with the illegal immigration, everything that's going on, right? So we have to be prepared to deal with it. The ambulance service is an integral system that has to be properly staffed from the standpoint of number of different medic units distributed throughout the county to give you the response time you want. And when one medic unit moves out, there's another medic unit that moves into a neutral zone that's closer to that proximity. So instead of maybe having a 15-minute response time, you might end up with 20 with the move ups and stuff. But it's an integrated system to try to make sure that no matter what kind of a catastrophe happens within the county, that we have as good a medic response as we can get. So those portions of it are basically what they are. I do believe ultimately the residents end up subsidizing it. Where those subsidies come in and how it actually affects the budget, I haven't looked at the fire department numbers for some time, and I know at the county level, there are a lot of subsidies that have to go in to maintain that service. It's unfortunate. The one exception obviously is when you get over the slope into South Lake Tahoe, there's a different system over there. There's CSA 3 and CSA 10. They operate differently, right? In their case, they do not use necessarily paramedics on the unit. A lot of them are EMTs. So they do transport, but they're not able to give the emergency response that other agencies such as our fire-based JPA ambulance system can provide. So it's a level of service thing to keep the costs down, but they are interesting differences in terms of how they operate.
Thank you.
Again, it's good to have Ms. Bennett here for her knowledge and experience to kind of guide the answers for us, but I'm hearing that it's cost neutral and we'll make sure that it remains that way. I appreciate and give kudos to the fact that they thought outside the box for the new classification of paramedics. Just make sure that that continues to be the right classification, that it's serving the citizens of Dorado Hills, and moving forward, just ensure that it remains cost neutral.
Great. So for closing statements, I'm going to have each of you pick one of these to see who will do closing statements first.
Okay.
You are lucky to get the first, and you're first.
If you're lucky to get the last.
And then we're just gonna go, we'll just do it for fun. We'll just do it by the numbers that are on.
Okay.
So we won't go in order.
Gina,
Yes.
as we're going into
I got
closing
two again.
statements,
Yeah.
I got.
I just wanted you all to know that we're gonna be going past 8:30. We understand because of the number of people here that we should take a little longer. So we are gonna be zooming until the completion. But also, I have 5 minutes that I'll need at the end after you've completed, for Board of Supervisors agenda for tomorrow. I'll
Okay,
only need 5 minutes.
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, who got one?
I did.
And you're first. Who got two?
Me.
Okay, 3, 4. Okay, so let me do that. Who's 3? You were 3? Okay, great. Go ahead, Dan.
All right, I appreciate this opportunity to sit here and have a conversation with you and kind of give you an idea of what I'm all about. When I set about in this journey, I had no idea what it was going to entail, but it's provided me the opportunity to talk to a lot of great people and a lot of great organizations. As Mr. Gotro said, we sat down with the El Dorado Hills Chamber of Commerce, their backpack, and as a result, they liked what we said and received their endorsement. We sat down with the El Dorado Association of Realtors, and that was an interesting conversation. They liked what I said and decided to endorse me. Sheriff Cooper, Sacramento County, I received his endorsement. I sat down with Sheriff Wyckoff, had a conversation with him. He liked what I said and endorsed me. Incoming District 1 Supervisor Greg Ferrero, had a discussion with him and he liked what he heard and decided to endorse me. So it's been kind of eye-opening to me that leading forward with my heart and kind of blending in my experience. Currently, I oversee 600 employees and a budget of 128 million. Am I making the day-to-day decisions with that budget? No, but I have division budget coordinators that I keep in constant contact with. I would bring that experience and that knowledge into this position and have a lot more time to do it and focus on it. So just, I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning.
Thank you. Bobby?
Oh, that's right. Second, sorry about that. So again, thank you so much for inviting me here today. I greatly appreciate it. As I had stated in the beginning, the reason I decided I would like to go ahead and run again for another term is that I want to be able to give back to my community, and this is one of my ways of doing that. In addition, I believe I have the knowledge and the skills to do that, not only from my professional background, but also having worked with fire departments for over 20 years and currently working with this fire department. I do have a very strong fiscal background. You don't think that with HR, but fiscal is very important in HR. And so I do understand public finances. And I think of equal importance is that I talk to people in the community. I talk to them. I talk to a lot of people. And they share with me, what they appreciate about the department or what's not going well, that type of thing. And I do take it to heart because my role as a board member is I'm a voice of the community. I represent the community. That's what a governing body is. So to me, it's very important to talk to community members and understand their positions on different things. So I do think that I bring value, and I do appreciate you taking the time to let me share my thoughts with you today. So thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so this has been an interesting journey. Like I said, I volunteered to be, put my name in to run for the board, and I had no idea that there was so many people interested. Like, I just remember El Dorado Hills, like it's just a small little place, right? And now it's like everybody is interested in what's going on, and it's cool, but this has been a big eye opener for me, which is good. I've learned a lot, I never thought I'd be interviewing for endorsements, right? And the 2 that I interviewed for, I got, which was pretty cool. So I obviously have something good going on. Was invited to this. I'm glad I was able to make it. But my experience is the fire service, public safety. being a public servant, like, that's what I've done, that's what I know how it works. I know the intricacies of it. I'm used to dealing with budgets and finance, being a battalion chief, working on the administration side, running our training department. Our training center, which was $180 million. So I was in charge of that training facility. So I bring a lot to the table. I have a lot of knowledge about what we're making decisions for. And be invested in the community, I'm gonna benefit from those decisions, as we all will. And as long as, we have people on the board that put the community first, that are fiscally responsible in the decisions they make, and make sure that the fire department has what they need to provide the best service, then we're doing the right thing. And I'm a person that can help make that happen.
Thank you. John?
I think the fundamental part of any good organization is strategy. And so I am a big proponent of strategic planning. I've seen it be very successful at the county level. I've seen it very, very successful in public practice. And I think the fire department really needs to do a public outreach oriented strategic plan. Which means we need to get input from residents who live there, residents who want to build there, the business community, really understand how we shape the organization and move it in the direction. I'm a big proponent of communications and open communications, transparency. How do we better communicate within the organization? I understand there's some issues when the battalion chiefs changed their role, that we lost some of the communication paths that were there. And a lot of the staff feel like they're not understanding where the organization is going. So first of all, you need a strategic plan to give you that orientation. Second of all, you need really good communication so that everybody's on the same page. The other part of that is community friendliness and business friendliness. We need to make sure that happens. The annexation is going to be a major consideration with Cameron Parks. We need to make sure the analysis is done, community input is gathered to the greatest extent we can. And I'm not just talking about a survey. Surveys usually end up with two extremes responding, right? Those that don't want any part of it and those that want every part of it, and people in the middle kind of stay neutral. The other thing I'll just add is I was endorsed by both the El Dorado County Association of Realtors and the El Dorado Hills Community Chamber. So those two organizations, I think, supporting me, recognize my experience, my knowledge of how the county operates. And that's the other thing I think I can bring to the table is some interpretation of what will happen with an annexation relative. Is the county going to be a participant or not in some form, as they have with previous fire district annexation? So we'll see how that all plays out.
Thank you. One comment we had on Zoom, Debbie Manning, President and CEO of the El Dorado Hills Chamber, wanted me to say that the El Dorado Hills Chamber of Commerce, BAC PAC, made the endorsement. We interviewed 5 of the 6 candidates who returned their questionnaires. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, with that concludes the candidate forum. I would like to thank all of the candidates for being here today. We appreciate your candor and willingness to answer our questions. I also want to thank everyone here in the room who submitted questions, as well as being in attendance and those on Zoom. This was recorded and it will be placed on our Facebook page. So you can send that to your friends and family, as well as other residents to take a look at. Again, I just want to thank all of you for being here. And Chris, you had something you wanted now to talk about?
Yeah.
So I just, should we?
Okay, I'm gonna start my clock. Tomorrow is Board of Supervisors meeting. They are gonna start at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
They're gonna go into closed session. There's 2 items, the Bucks Bar bridge project challenge, which I assume is something environmental. And then item 33, that was 32, 33 is labor negotiations with the labor groups. That's the 2 items. They'll come back in, reconvene in open session at 9 o'clock. I'm just gonna hit the highlights. Department matters, item 25 is a proclamation for Brian Ishmael Day, which will be on October the 23rd, I assume every year.
Deputy Ishmael.
In the future. Item 26 is the DOT traffic impact fee discussion. And then there's time specific, 9 o'clock is the tobacco retail ordinance hearing. That's at 9, time specific, item 27. Item 28 is a multiple jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan discussion at 10 o'clock, time specific. Like they said, the tobacco retail hearing was at 9, this is at 10. And then also at 10, that was item 28. 29 is the Tax and Equity Fiscal Responsibility Act hearing. That has to do with, I believe, affordable housing. And so that'll be at item 29 at 10. Then at 11 o'clock, Bucks Bar Bridge River Access discussion at 11 o'clock time specific. Open forum at 1 o'clock, and at 1:15, there'll be an appeal on a cannabis farm issue at 1:15 time specific. That's 2 minutes. Get it?
Great. I also was remiss, I should have thanked Kevin for his Zoom and Hank for being our wonderful timekeeper.
For doing the
Yeah.
hosting this.
Yes, thank you.
Coordinator.
My pleasure.
Are we ready?
We're done.
We stand adjourned.
Thank you, all of you.